Alberto, this was, by all accounts, a free and fair election. Bolsonaro lost, but he was not gracious about losing. He wasn't even at the inauguration. In fact, he was here in the United States. But what do you make of what happened on Sunday, and does it pose a threat to Brazilian democracy?
No, of course not. I think no. It was a very small group that began violence and vandalism that we must not count on, but we must stop this. We must vehemently repudiate any acts of violence and vandalism by anyone, from the right, from the left, from anyone. Just on Sunday's vandalism attacked the powers of the Republic. Just to quote recent examples, in 2017, during Temer's government, the left also did it. What amazes me is the different treatment given to violent actions now and there, from the right and from the left. With vandalism is vandalism, something abject which must be condemned from everybody. Regarding to what happened on Sunday, the judge must judge impartially without being contaminated by emotion, with the support of the laws and the Constitution, without any trampling. We also need to analyze in detail the reasons that led the minority of the population, very minority of population, until then orderly, to commit these crimes. We have to see with detachment and parsimony the whole context. We must, as I always do, practice empathy, which is when we put ourselves in other shoes to understand their motives. Even if at first glance there is no impression about the impression that everything is very wrong, it's very, very rude. Everyone must calm down and make a fair and correct assessment, as it must be done in a democratic environment with a plurality of opinions.
Gustavo Ribeiro. Alberto, what is your response to what Paulo Sotero just told us, that this was actually an attempted coup? It was an attempt to overturn an election?
I think people are very angry with what the Supreme Court is doing and all what is going on. And they were 2 months waiting for something that was in their minds. It was not possible to do. It's because he said it's legitimately elected. That's it, correct. So they were nervous. So they thought the army would help them when they went there. I think, firstly, that they didn't want to break anything and to damage anything, but psychologically, they did what they did. That is vandalism. It's terrible. Now, in relation to strong and hate speeches, we have to point that Lula has delivered throughout his life, and more recently as well, hate speeches, separation between us and them, censorship, among others. There is also a video on YouTube asking people who said such a hateful thing, whether it was Lula or Bolsonaro. And the astonishment of those interviewed, it was Lula. See and understand that, unfortunately, there is no Lula peace and love, as he names himself, unfortunately.
Alberto, you were talking earlier on about some of the actions that the Supreme Court has taken and how those actions, those decisions that were handed down, have angered people in Brazil, have angered Bolsonaro's supporters. They're very unhappy about that. Among those decisions is the fact that the Supreme Court dismissed the governor of Brasilia state for lack of public safety. The Supreme Court has also gone after journalists for spreading fake news, for spreading disinformation, and for endangering democracy. How did that factor into what we saw on Sunday?
First of all, we have fake news from both sides. Unfortunately, we have everybody makes fake news and not check it. That's the problem. First, because we feel the decisions for the left are different from the decisions from the right. Secondly, I'm going to point some decisions that sound strange. I don't know why. They ended the Lava Jato, the car wash, increased the need for convictions to effectively arrest the perpetrator, make Lula eligible after 2 convictions, taking him out of jail and setting him free. Why? Divide the vote in the impeachment of President Dilma Rousseff, contrary to what the federal constitution says. Imprisoning for crime of opinion, being partial against the right, carrying out survey called fake news without typifying what the term is legally, since we have injury,
Yeah.
We have slander and defamation, and not only fake news. It's
Okay.
very general.
All right.
And strongly punish strongly punish businessmen, taking away their right to manifest themselves in networks, blocking bank accounts without deeping investigation,
Alberto,
and relying only on a journalist article.
Okay, Alberto, I've only got 30 seconds left. I want to get Paulo Sotero's response to what you were saying about those Supreme Court decisions that got President Lula out of prison. Paulo Sotero, I've only got 30 seconds, if you could, please.
It's a controversial decision, but it was the decision taken by the Supreme Court.